Welcome, folks, to the season finale of our Big Blue Avenue live streams. I'm Tom Scavetta, joined alongside Sam Cardona Norberg. Sam, we've had 2 weeks to prep for this. How are you feeling? I know we're both a little bit under the weather, but excited to be back with you here tonight.
Yeah, I know. Last show of the year, coming a little later than normal, but that's okay. Yeah, I'm honestly I'm excited because we get to now look forward to hopefully some better things to come in, April and in the summer of next year before our season starts. And it's going to be a lot of discussion in terms of like what's going to happen, how's this guy going to do, whatever may happen, especially in the draft. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we actually develop well, have a better team next year, because this is probably one of the lowest parts of our team's organization this year than we've got to experience together.
It's been a rough road, folks. We will talk about how the Giants could connect the dots before heading into the 2025 offseason. If you're new to the channel, want to check us out, there's our social media scrolling across the ticker below. We'll leave it up there for another moment. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Big Blue Avenue. So, Sam, let's address the elephant in the room. John Mara comes out and says that head coach Brian Daboll and general manager Joe Schoen will return in 2025. Did you think this would happen, and did you want this to happen? So sort of like two different questions. Is this what you expected, and is this what you wanted?
Definitely talking about, when we had this discussion a couple of weeks ago, I didn't think both of them were going to come back. I definitely thought if anyone was going to go, it was going to be Brian Daboll. And we talked about too how we would prefer if it was Shane that they moved on from. But hearing the news that both of them were coming back, I was shocked. Like genuinely, I wasn't expecting that at all. And I'd actually I made a comparison in my brain that I wanted to share with you. And of course, it has to do with the Chicago Bears because I feel like we have constantly fallen into this parallel line with the organization of the Chicago Bears. And it was that they had Matt Nagy in 2018, I believe, and he won Coach of the Year that first year he coached. They kept him for 2 more years, and then they got rid of him, and they got rid of the GM. So this is kind of a flipped situation where we got Brian Daboll, he won Coach of the Year, got him for 2 years. Now, the conversation started being had, and we're keeping both of them. Obviously, we see where the Bears are at right now. Still not a great franchise. So I wonder if maybe there is something they know that we don't know. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
The more I think about this and kind of take a step back and really ponder about it, it makes sense to keep both of them because clearly they wanted to keep Shane. And if you want to keep Shane to get a new quarterback, you better keep Daboll too, because he has not done that bad of a job compared to Joe Schoen. In my personal opinion, my dad saying, "Hello, Tom and Sam, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills, represent New York." Definitely. Yeah, the only team that represents the area left in the race for the Lombardi Trophy. Eli Manning came out and said this was the right decision. And obviously we know Eli is very close to the situation. He works for the organization now. Gettleman, people want to say Gettleman got 4 years. Shane should as well. I don't necessarily agree with that, despite Shane doing a better job. I think the reason why we're 3-14 in year 3 is because of how well they did the first year, and that set us back. So I think being 3-14, it's the lack thereof of a quarterback and some other stuff that they failed to address in previous drafts. So I think they are right to keep both. They want to try to get back to where they were in 22 and then some. That's asking a lot, but it's not impossible. We saw Washington do it. We saw Cincinnati do it a couple of years ago. And the Lions, The Lions are another team, but the Lions did it the right way. This is year 4, and they're projected to make it to the big game. So I think in hindsight, if the Giants really want to rebuild this the right way, they're basically starting over from scratch with the same guys, if that makes sense. Personnel-wise, they're sort of starting over. They're building on what they've done their last 3 drafts and wipe clean the Gettleman era. Jones is gone. Saquon's gone. Don't bring Slayton back. If you want to bring Aziz back for depth, fine. I would love that. But there comes a point in time where you got to make personnel changes, staff changes. And I think a lot of people say, yeah, John Mara's lowered the standards so much, but the continuity is what needs to be there. If you start over again, you're basically rewinding 5 years. Shane and Dable, they've built the foundation. Now, regardless of how Sam or I think about the foundation, folks, there is a foundation. And clearly, majority of the locker room agrees. And remarkably, through 2 awful losing seasons, Brian Dable never fully lost the locker room. That's why he still has a job.
Shocking.
My opinion. Do you agree with that, Sam? Do you think he ever fully lost the locker room each of the last 2 seasons? Last year, definitely not. This year, I think he held on to it by a thread. And we're talking like a very thin thread that didn't cut open.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with you there, just because of the fact that we saw so many post-game interviews with not only Malik Neighbors, but several guys, Jalen Hyatt and, so mostly offensive guys, talking about how they were kind of giving off the vibe that they were not happy, and how I think you and I were discussing Jalen Hyatt being asked how he felt about Brian Dable keeping his job, and he was like, yeah, good for him. And it's very obvious that not everyone there is a big fan of him, but if he's your coach, then he's your coach at the end of the day, and you got to respect him, and you got to follow along with what he thinks is the right plan. And there are very few people who actually can override anything a coach is saying. So I'm shocked that he didn't lose the locker room, because it does seem like he does have a bit, and he's got some anger issues. You can tell out on the sidelines, he gets all red in the face, but at the end of the day, we're not there. We don't see it all. But I was pretty shocked that not everybody, even like all the team, turned against him. There must be something about him that he's doing that makes them want to stick by him.
However, Mara did say Dable should possibly consider giving up the play calling, because in 2022, he did not call plays, and the Giants went 9-7-1. So there is truth to that. Also, another note, the Giants are in good financial shape. They are $40 million under the cap for this year, $100 million in 2026. My concern, Sam, is that Joe Schoen goes on a spending spree, which I don't think he will, but there's a chance he might. And if they fire him after next year, the new GM could turn over and deal with all these bad contracts again. So we definitely want to avoid that. In Dable's perspective, Giants wanted Coughlin gone after year 3. They went 8-8, but they made the playoffs. See, there was a difference there. They had good players all across the roster, and they made the playoffs twice in 2 of his first 3 years. Dable's only made it once and has gone backwards. Coughlin went from 6-10 to 11-5, and then to 8-8, and then went to 10-6, and then they won the Super Bowl. And with Parcells, he went 10-6 in year 3, and he was on the hot seat. The thing that bothers me here is Dable's 3-14, but if there's a silver lining, year 4 historically has been a good year for Giants head coaches, but I don't know if I could say the same here about Brian Dable and the state of this team. I just don't know.
Yeah.
We're so behind.
We're going to have to see. I think that it'll be very telling by the time April comes around, how this team will end up in the 2025 season, because Otherwise we really don't have any idea because we don't know who's on the team next year.
Right.
So, we could knock it out of the park in the draft. Like, who knows? We could do an absolutely incredible job, but we won't actually know that until it actually happens.
Absolutely. Other news, Giants fired defensive backs coach Jerome Henderson and safeties coach Michael Treier on Wednesday. Both of those guys were hired during the Joe Judge era. Henderson was the longest tenured assistant coach. Had a lot of beef with Deontay Banks this year. There was lack of effort at times. I think going from Wink's scheme to Shane Bowen's scheme did not bode well for Henderson. And John Mara made this quote, Sam, in regards to the defense this year. I don't think our defense played very well this year at all. I'm tired of watching teams go up and down the field on us. And he's right. I mean, say what you want about John Mara. He cares. He might not be a great owner, but he cares. He wants to win. And I give him a lot of respect and credit for going out there in front of the media, answering all these questions, and basically admitting, like, we're all not doing a good enough job and changes have to be made. And fortunately, this is one of those tough changes.
Yeah. I feel like we could go on and on about what we can do or what may happen, and just at the end of the day, there's nothing that we can do about the decisions that were made. But it was so obvious in all those interviews, or that interview that John Mara was doing, just like on the field, and like he's angry and he wants to see, change. And I think that that's kind of refreshing to see as an owner. There aren't that many owners who are out there complaining, basically. So maybe seeing the fire under John Mara and kind of visualizing our owners to be someone who wants to win seems a little promising in my eyes.
100%. What's up? It's Inspire. Travis Hunter at 3. Interesting.
I like that.
Him, Pickens, and Darnold. I doubt both go. However, I think if Pittsburgh wants to be a legit contender and not be stuck in mediocrity, they might want to trade for Sam Darnold. He's looked bad, but he had a good season. They won 14 games, and Minnesota probably doesn't bring him back, but Darnold in Pittsburgh might work. It's younger. Russ is old. I mean, it's definitely an option. I don't think he would be good with the Giants, though. That's just me. Shane Bowen reportedly staying on as defensive coordinator. Many players this year struggled a lot with the transition from press man coverage to zone coverage. And yeah, I think Bowen deserves the chance to fix up his staff. I think, me personally, I'm more surprised, Sam, that he was not poached to join Mike Vrabel's staff in New England. And that should be telling if Vrabel doesn't want Shane Bowen to go with him to New England, and that he's staying. Maybe Bowen just personally wants to stay with the Giants, and credit to Dable, give him a chance to get his assistants in that he likes and the personnel that he likes. But you're a good coordinator if other coaches want you, and clearly Mike Vrabel does not want him. So I don't know.
I know that you're not a fan of Shane Bowen throughout this season, and our defense in the past has kind of been our shining light as our offense has continued to try and figure its shit out, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And we were kind of riddled with injuries and everything, but I did not see that same monumental defense as we were used to this year, as per usual. So I don't know. Mike Vrabel kind of seems like a pretty smart guy. And him going off to New England, he knows what he's doing. So it's obvious he's got a plan in mind, and it doesn't involve Shane Bowen.
No. I will say, though, Bowen deserves to get more run-stopping personnel into the Giants' room. I don't think the Giants were able to do that much last offseason, so let's see if they get more defensive tackles and maybe some good backup linebackers for Bobby O and McFadden if they could improve in that category. Also, the Las Vegas Raiders have requested to interview Giants assistant GM Brandon Brown for their vacant GM position. Now, Brown also got interviews last offseason. Sam, I do think he is a rising mind, working with Joe Schoen in unison. I don't think Joe Schoen is awful at his job. I don't think he's good, but, he's getting better over time. I think the two of them together have done some really good things. Brandon Brown was responsible for the Daniel Bellinger draft pick. He was also a big reason why they drafted Tyrone Tracy in the 5th round this year. And those 2 day 3 picks alone, I don't think should go unnoticed. So yeah, definitely good for him getting this interview. And I hope he doesn't get the job because I'd like to have him back. Selfishly, I think he's a good assistant GM for sure. I'd be interested to see what he does in the top seat, but that won't be happening with the Giants, I don't think, because I think him and Shane like each other too much to part ways. But they're all part of the same room every year that falls in love with a couple players and draft for need as well. So that is a downside about Brandon Brown. He is part of that room that likes to draft for need and not for best player available. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I will say though that when we were watching Hard Knocks last year, I believe Brandon Brown was one of those people who was trying to vouch for keeping Saquon, and you could just hear his football knowledge as he was talking. He seems like he knows a good amount about what's going on within the league, outside the league, in college football. Like I trust him for sure, and I would agree that I hope that he sticks around, especially going to the Raiders. It's just you're gonna have to deal with Tom Brady all the time. You really want to have to deal with Tom Brady all the time? That guy's basically the GM. It's like, come on, you don't want to go there. You can stay here.
Yeah, him and Chris Rossetti, I like a lot. I think those two are good additions to the front office. Hopefully, they can get more of a say. I hope Joe Schoen gets better too. I want Joe Schoen to be I want him to be a successful GM. I do.
Yeah,
He's gotten
same.
better, but the first year was rough. It was rough. Enough of that, Sam. Let's get into our season awards. We had a late add to this, and I'll let you handle this segment, Sam.
Sure.
Our MVP. Who did we choose as our MVP this season for
I
Big Blue?
I think that it's pretty notable here who our MVP of the Giants is. It's Dexter Lawrence, who led that defense like nobody's business up until he was injured. Even after he got injured, you could tell he was still trying to do his best to incorporate himself into that defense on the sidelines. 44 tackles, 9 sacks, 8 tackle for loss. He just was out here doing amazing in not even a full season. So, and he's a consistent guy on our team, always, forever. We love Dexter, and I hope he sticks around. I hope that he's one of these Giants for lifers, even through the struggles, because we cannot afford to lose someone like him. He's just such a leader, not even on the defense, just on the team in general, and is very obviously the most valuable player on this team.
I completely agree. They missed him when he was off the field this year. Even before he was hurt, when he was still playing, and downs where he wasn't on the field, teams were running down our throat like it was nothing. It was like Moses parting the Red Sea. Hate to say it, but also shout out Albert's mom, saying hi, Tom. Hi, Mrs. Donor. Appreciate you tuning in. Believe in Florida now, right? So hope you're enjoying, hopefully, that warm weather down there in Florida. Very happy to see her in the comments section. Next up, Offensive Player of the Year. It was a rough year for the offense. No Saquon this year. Daniel Jones left for Minnesota. It was really slim picking, Sam. There was really only 1 or 2 guys we could choose.
It's pretty obvious here. Our wide receiver rookie, Malik Neighbors, Offensive Player of the Year. He just did everything that he could possibly do for this offense. He reached 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns with 170 targets. Obviously, the first New York Giant wide receiver to get to that 1,000-yard mark since Odell Beckham, another LSU alum. I mean, he's breaking records left and right. He holds the record for the most receiving in New York Giants single season history and the most games with 5+ receiving by a rookie in NFL history with 13. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious if we were excluding quarterbacks from the actual Offensive Rookie of the Year award at the NFL Honors. I think Malik Neighbors would be huge contender, but there are some pretty impressive rookie quarterbacks out there right now who will most likely be taking that award from him. But again, did everything that he possibly could with what he was given on this offense.
Played with 4 quarterbacks this year.
4 in his rookie year.
Awful. Yeah. First Giant eclipse 1,000 yards in a long time, Sam. Long time. Slayton never did it. It's Odell, last one. I mean, you see shades of Odell in him, in his game.
Sure.
Similar size. Malik's a little taller, obviously. Also, the fact that he was able to consistently get 5+ receptions in 13 games this year, Giants quarterbacks knew they had to get him the football. And more often than not, they were able to do it, regardless of which one was out there, Sam. And I think Malik Neighbors, his ability to make guys miss in open space, to make acrobatic catches. I'd like to see him improve and work on his blocking and his technique a little bit. I think he has potential to be really, really good. And shout out to wide receivers coach Mike Groh, one of the better position coaches on our roster. I think he's very underrated. You could argue, lack thereof development of Jalen Hyatt. I think there comes a point in time where you have to start looking at the players instead of the coaches. I think Malik Neighbors has really answered that call, because why is Malik doing so well? Why was Slayton doing well? Why was Hyatt not? I mean, I think sometimes it depends on the player, and Malik Neighbors really impressed, but that comes to no surprise. We all knew he was going to be really, really good, and hopefully they win some more games from him next year. Defensively, another newcomer, Sam, our defensive player of the year. This was a guy who stuck out on the field, played in every single game this season, the only defensive starter to do that.
Yep. We had Edge Brian Burns out here doing what he needed to do. Spider-Man in New York, swinging from the buildings. He had a career high tackles for loss with 71, 8.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. I mean, this guy we were stoked to get him, and I just don't think that we really realized how important he was going to be to our defense when he got on here. I knew we were excited when he came in, but they've been talking about getting Brian Burns for a while. And again, Hard Knocks, we saw Joe Shane trying to bargain for him out there in Carolina for quite a bit of time, and it worked. He was able to get him, and that's one of the benefits of Joe Shane. One of the good things about Joe Shane is obviously he did what he could to get someone like Brian Burns on our team, and it made such a huge deal. He played, like you said, every game this year, and that's in and of itself such an important thing for our team is consistency. I hope that he is not he's not disheveled or anything or pushed away by how this season turned out, and that he sticks around for us in the coming years, because I think that he's definitely going to be needed.
Certainly. He's on contract for another 4 years. I think without having Kayvon Thibodeau for a while this year, I thought he stepped up. Azeez Ojulari missed a bunch of games. Shocker. And Dexter Lawrence missed a few games. So the Giants led the NFL in sacks for nearly half the season. And I think a lot of that should be credited to Brian Burns, taking advantage of mismatches. And Joe Shane did an excellent job leveraging in this trade. Originally, Carolina wanted, I think it was at least won one, if not two. Trying to remember on Hard Knocks what they wanted, but Joe Shane got it down to 2 twos and a 5. So I'm sorry, 1 2 and a 5, not 2 twos. So that's impressive work by Joe Shane. I know Dan Morgan's his buddy, but he might have gave him a friend discount there on that one. But Joe Shane knows. He knows how to take advantage, and he made it work. He's been a good trader, I should say, since he's been the general manager. Happy New Year to you, Hassan, as well. Appreciate the comment. Crazy. We're in the middle of January already.
Literally, like the fact that I've already have like the first 3 months of my life planned out this year. It is like it's already April to me. Like I can't even wrap my head around it. And I'm telling you, Tom, I know you're in the midst of planning a wedding. Like that. It's going to fly by. You're gonna be like, I have so much time. You don't. It's literally all of a sudden you're gonna be the night before your wedding. You're gonna be like, how did I even get here?
It's been 3 months already, and another. Oh gosh, how many months to go? Hey, how many months to go? I think we have 20 months to go, but still, it's
I'm
going to come
telling
up
you,
quick.
I thought I had a lot of time, and then all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh, I'm." It's already been for me 7 months since I got married.
Feels like a blur, right?
Woo! Like John Cena.
Yeah. Shout out John Cena. Farewell, Doug.
Shout out John.
These are the conversations you love to have, especially when your team is going through a bad time. Just going off the cusp and trying to take your mind off the awfulness that the Giants have produced.
We're trying to find the light in
this
it.
year. Yeah. So, as a rookie talking to the polished veteran here in Sam, as far as wedding advice goes, speaking of rookies, who is our rookie of the year? And I'll be honest, there are a lot of good rookies this year.
I
A
would
lot.
argue the same, yes. However, it is a name that we have already said as our offensive player of the year. Malik Neighbors is our rookie of the year just because of the numbers that he was able to put up. I mean, honorable mentions here. Tyron Tracy is like these guys just were out here doing great. Tyler Nubin, they were phenomenal, and I was very, very impressed with how all these guys played. But, you know, the numbers don't lie and the effect on the team doesn't lie. So Malik Neighbors did take 2 awards home tonight from Big Blue Avenue. But we see everyone else on that field who just started this year because I'm excited to see a lot of these guys develop in the coming years.
Me too. And it'll be interesting to see what other pieces they add to those 6 rookies we had this season. And I think one piece that's been a mainstay for the last few years now, Sam, is our most improved player, which shout out to you. You had the idea to add this guy in the mix, and I think it's well deserved. It's definitely honorable to point out a guy who, through losing, through bad times, through adversity, continues to go into work day in and day out, put 110% into his body of work. And it really showed on the football field for this next guy.
Absolutely. And when we brought him up, or I brought him up, I was like MVP 2.0. But Micah McFadden, not only on the field, off the field, did his best with damage control, was doing his best. And no one knows who Micah McFadden is if you're not a Giants fan. Like, unless you're really into the football, into the depth charts, like, he is not a name that pops out on the screen. He's not on, First Take in the morning or Good Morning Football, but he is such an important part of this team and has only gotten better every year. I mean, like there's like for the past 2 years now we've been talking about him, and he's just consistently good and has come out, especially when Dexter Lawrence went out with that injury. I know, we were talking about Brian Burns and these high level guys, but Mike McFadden stepped up too, and he did what he needed to do. He led the team in tackles with 107. He had 3 sacks. I mean, like they're not huge numbers. A forced fumble, a couple of QB hits in 14 games. But over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, like I'm so happy that Micah has consistently done well and has gotten better. And he's one of these guys that we're happy he's on our team despite not being one of these big names that everyone's talking about.
I'll tell you from his experience. I mean, again, I'm not him. I'm not going to try to pretend to be him, but he did a lot of losing at Indiana, and he's sort of doing the same thing here with the Giants. Hopefully that flips back to the winning category in years to come. But yeah, no, he's learned a lot from Okereke as well. I think that's definitely helped him out big time. Shout out John Agorgu, our inside linebackers coach. Second to last segment of the evening, it is time for our top 10 player reveal, folks. The way we'll do this is we'll kind of just sit here and converse and talk about it because Sam and I don't know each other's list. We don't know the order, but what we're going to do is we're going to talk it out here on the live show, and then we're going to have 2 graphics to post on socials later on, either tomorrow or Saturday. We'll get those up. So, Sam, we'll start with your number 10, then we'll go to my number 10, and we'll do that until we get up to number 1.
Gotcha. Well, my number 10 is someone that I did mention to you will probably be making my list. And as you told me, was getting some airtime Monday night. He's currently a New York, no longer a New York Giant, but a Minnesota Viking. I'm putting Daniel Jones on my list because that guy, it wasn't even just this year. He had just gone through it for so long since we drafted him, and even exited the team with class, asked for that release, and did it in the best way possible. I feel like he obviously was not performing well earlier this year, but I just wanted him to sit on this list because I just respect him for his game. I respect him for his class and what he was able to do for us, and how he transferred that playoff curse over to the Minnesota Vikings on Monday night. Because how ironic is it that you get into the wild card round, you beat the Vikings in your it was 3rd year, and now you go over there, you're backup for Sam Darnold, and the Vikings lose in the wild card again. But yeah, so I just wanted to toss Daniel Jones in there just to give him the space that he deserves.
Some people online even wanted him to get into the game Monday night with how bad Sam was playing. But to be real, it was the Vikings offensive line that was the problem. It's everything that went wrong for Daniel Jones in 2023. I appreciate you putting him on your list. I'll be honest, I did not, but I'm
Okay,
glad.
I did it for both of us.
I'm glad one of us did. Yeah, if we did a top 12, I might have threw him on there. So he's an honorable mention for me. For me, number 10, Azeez Ojulari. I'm a big fan of his. He didn't play enough games this year to get any higher on the list, in my opinion, but the potential has always been there. 6 sacks on the year for Azeez, and it was a small sample size for him. I mean, look, he missed a lot of time with his big toe injury. He only played in 11 games. And throughout his 4 years with the Giants, he had 22 sacks. Now, I'm not saying he's done as a Giant. He may or may not be, but he's definitely been a player that I've loved. He's been one of my favorite Giants since coming here in 2021, and he's the last survivor of that 2021 draft class, and is still on the Giants. Goes to show you how much of excuse my language, but a hellhole that draft class was from Dave Gettleman. So enough of Dave Gettleman, Sam. Let's get to your number 9.
My number 9 is somebody who's on the younger side, but I put Drew Phillips in there as a corner, someone who kind of came in and just kind of held it down. I mentioned earlier how this defense was not as up to par as it has been in the past, even despite our losing seasons or even our better seasons. But when the offense has struggled, we've always consistently leaned on the defense. I'd argue that Drew Phillips was one of those shining lights in our defense this year. And, he's on the younger side. He's only 23. But I definitely feel like he deserves a little bit of a spotlight and some kudos for what he was able to do this year.
I rock with Drew Phillips. I think he's solid, good press cover corner, good making tackles too, sure-handed guy. Solid third-round pick, yeah. Going with Bobby O for my number 9.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a little low. He didn't play enough games, Sam.
Fair.
This year he struggled at times. Still good enough to make the list, obviously. 93 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. And I believe he played in 12 games? Yeah, 12 games. So definitely not going any higher for me. Really good player, though. I've liked him since he's came here. So, yeah, he's my number 9. Let's get to your number 8.
So, ironically enough, my number 8 is Bobby Okereke for
No.
many of the same reasons. I had him one spot above. But, yeah, Bobby O, you made a good point that he definitely did not play as many games, but we know what he's capable of doing, and I think that's why he still makes both of our lists despite being on the bottom half of the top 10. I love Bobby O. I think he's great. I'm happy that he's consistently been on our team as well. I feel like he's kind of number 2 to Dexter Lawrence, and just a nice guy in general. But yeah, I definitely for a second I was like, wow, Tom has him low, and then I looked at my list and I was like, oh, I have him pretty low too. But yeah, for the same reasons, not enough statistics to get him higher on the list.
All right, so my number 8, staying with the defense. We've gone all defense thus far, I believe, except you went Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
I got Thibodeau at number 8. Again, injury-riddled season for this team. He didn't play enough games to get any higher, but I think what he did the last couple weeks of the season, it speaks volumes to the type of leader that he is to finish the season with 5.5 sacks when going into the last couple weeks of the season, he only had 3. So, yeah, it's interesting to note, and he should be acknowledged for it. Whether he's on a top 10 or not, I think he's a leader on this football team. He played in 12 games this year, and, he was quiet at times, but I think he was part of that pass rush that got to the quarterback. It kept the Giants in games early, and entering a contract year, this is a big year upcoming for Kayvon Thibodeau because they're not going to exercise the 5th-year option on Evan Neal. I'd imagine they're doing it to Kayvon Thibodeau, though. To try to keep him on a cost-controlled deal for not just next year, but the following year as well. And then if he proves it the next 2 years, then you extend them. But, yeah, I think Thibodeau has been a good part of this team since coming here. So, yeah, he's my number 8. Number 7. Lucky number 7.
I'm gonna break the defense. I'm gonna go offense here at number 7. And I'm going to throw Wan'Dale Robinson into the mix. Not obviously any Malik Neighbors by any stretch of the imagination or an offensive weapon that I think we have not been utilizing him to his highest potential. But there's been times Wan'Dale has been clutch for us in, the times when, double coverage on Malik or can't get the ball to Darius or what have you. Like Wan'Dale's there. And, he's kind of, I feel like Wan'Dale's kind of taken the space that Jalen Hyatt should have filled. And Jalen Hyatt is not someone who has done anything for us for that matter. But Wan'Dale, again, nothing monumental this year, but consistent, a guy who's there. He's where he needs to be, never complains. I hear nothing come out of Wan'Dale's mouth in the media at all. So, definitely respect his game and his position on this team. So I have him at number 7.
I like the pick. The only time he ever got into a little trouble, but satirical trouble, was post Seattle, where he had the watch your trap video going on. And then Brian Dable's like, don't post that shit.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was having fun, though. They were celebrating. So I give him a pass.
All right. Absolutely. Number 7 for me, I'm going Casey Kreider, the long snapper. Big long snapper guy. He's played in every game since being a Giant. He has never missed a game due to injury. Again, he plays a position that doesn't require too much contact, but He's been doing a great job since he's been here. He was a captain this season, and the Giants had a relatively efficient snapping game. It's because of him, and sometimes long snapping gets underrated. Look at 2002, the year we don't talk about as Giants fans. They lost the playoff game out in San Francisco because they didn't have a good long snapper. And, it's a position we don't have to worry about for quite some time, although he is 34 years old now. So he may only have another 3 to 4 years left. But he's my number 7. I've always liked him. Good player, doesn't complain, blue-collar guy, former Pro Bowler too. So shout out Casey Kreider.
For fun fact, there's a Cardona in the league. Joe Cardona, he's a long snapper for the Patriots.
He is, yep, he is. No relation, I assume.
No, not that I'm aware of, but he was in the Navy. And we're a military family over here, so
yes.
we, despite being a Patriot, I ignore that fact, and we always support Joe Cardona.
He's been in the league for a few years now.
Quite a bit, yeah. Honestly,
yeah,
probably like 7 years at this point, close to. Because I remember him getting drafted back. I would think I was in college. So
you're like, wow, who is this guy?
Yeah, and I was like, Dad, is that our cousin? And he was like, no. I was like, okay. Number 6. All right.
Yes, number 6, Sam.
My number 6 is Tyler Nubin. And kind of for similar reasons that I have Drew Phillips on my list here. Tyler Nubin is again, safety for this team, rookie. Argue that he's one of the better rookies of the year out of our very talented class here. But they were just I feel like Tyler Nubin kind of stepped up, because we lost Deontay Banks. Like I'm saying, he wasn't even on the team. He basically fell off the face of the earth. And Tyler Nubin stepped up, and these guys, it's their rookie year, and the NFL stands for not for long. So when he sees that opening to be a more monumental player than somebody who's maybe in their sophomore year, he's gonna take that shot. And he stood out to me. And again, nothing crazy, nothing monumental, but there was a few plays this past year that I was like, wow, look at Tyler go. He's doing great. So I put him in the top of the bottom half of my list.
I love Tyler Nubin. I think he exemplifies what a New York Giant is. But that was a need draft pick by Joe Shane rather than a value draft pick. He was the top safety rookie in the NFL this year. He led all rookies in tackles for majority of the season. I like him. I think he's going to be a great Giant, but that's another example of a need draft pick. But yeah, one hell of a player. I like him a lot. Possibly future captain in a couple of years. We'll see. We will see. My number 6, I've got Micah McFadden. Look, led the Giants in tackles, missed a couple games late, but he's a mainstay. Legit starter in this league, former 5th-round pick. Those 3 sacks, he has the ability to rush the quarterback. I just think all in all, he's a good sideline-to-sideline scraper. And, I just overall think that he knows what he's doing out there. High IQ guy. He's learned from the best. And, one of our most consistent players this season. So he falls just right outside of my top 5 at number 6. And if you asked me before the season, is Micah McFadden going to be your 6th best overall player in 2024? No way. I maybe 9 or 10 at best, but not number 6. And there he is at number 6. Although I don't know if that's a good thing. It might speak more on how bad the Giants were this season that he's up there at number 6. But he's played well.
If you're gonna have stuff to say when I mention Mike McFadden's name.
Oh yeah. Oh God.
We're not there yet though. Number 5. So we're on the top 5 now.
Yep.
My number 5, I got Brian Burns. We talked about him earlier in the show for very obvious reasons. Someone who's played every snap, someone who came into this team, coming from Carolina. Obviously it's a rough team to kind of jump into, but has done what he's needed to do as a defensive guy. And has a career high in tackles here, which is pretty great. It's someone that I'm happy that we have on our team and on our defense because, like I said, with the defensive, the injuries and stuff, stepped up to the plate, and I feel like he's developed into a really good leader for the Giants.
Yeah, I have Burns on my list too. I think he's a great pick. But for me at number 5, I took the rookie running back out of Purdue, Tyrone Tracy Jr. Look, it is very difficult to be the successor of Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
But Tracy has evolved his game so well. He was a wide receiver most of his time in college. He was a bit of an older rookie, which is part of the reason why I think he was able to jump in and play so well. He's now 25 years old, which is a bit old for, an up and coming second year guy. 839 rushing yards, 5 scores on the season. He took over for Devin Singletary rather quickly this year. I know Motor got hurt, and then he just never saw the start again.
Motor.
Tracy unseated him, and he had 38 catches, nearly 300 yards receiving, and 1 score. And he's getting a lot of advice from Saquon Barkley. I mean, I think Saquon is. He still has a soft spot for the Giants. He does.
100%.
I truly think he wanted to stay, but he saw the direction the franchise was headed in, and he's like, I want to win, and I want to play for a local team that needs a running back, and the Philadelphia Eagles checked off all of those boxes for him. Tracy, low-cost player. He might be the starting running back for at least the next 3 years, barring any injuries. I think he's that good of a player. And Sam, did you see him handle a lot of these questions after losses this year? The guy would just be so optimistic about his future, about the team. I mean, yeah, he was bummed out that they lost and he wasn't happy about it, but just the way he carried himself as a rookie is very, very impressive. For me, too, it's not just what you do on the field, it's off the field. And we think very highly of guys like Micah McFadden who do that, Brian Burns, but Tracy's up there too. I think he deserves to be recognized in this list.
100%. I have Tracy on my list as well. At number 4, and it's only because of the injury and the lack thereof statistics and not being able to play in games. But I do have Dexter Lawrence at 4. And like I said, it's not his fault. I think he probably would have been number 1 or number 2 if he played more games and he didn't get injured. But he's obviously a consistent guy on our team and a consistent leader. We've said nothing but good things about him in this past hour of the show so far. So yeah, he's Dexter Lawrence. He's sexy Dexy. He'll always be in the top 5 of our top 10 players for the Giants.
Absolutely, as he should. I have him on my list too, but not yet at number 4. This might come as a surprise to you, Sam. I've got Andrew Thomas.
Wow.
Yeah, I do. The offensive line fell apart when he got hurt. Not just the offensive line, the entire offense fell apart when this guy went down this year. He only played in 6 games, which is a massive issue, but I think his value, he might not be the best overall player on the team, but he's the most important player to that offense. He's more important to the team's success than any other player on that offense, and that includes Malik Neighbors. You can get by with lackluster receiving play in the NFL. You cannot get by with lackluster offensive line play. You saw Runyon's play decline. You saw Schmitz's play decline. Evan Neal came in and looked okay this year. I think Carm Brasillo deserves a lot of credit. I wanted at least one offensive lineman on this list. And he's the guy.
It's like lack thereof. Obviously, the lack of Andrew Thomas shows how important he is. And I agree with you. He unfortunately did not make my list, but I 100% agree with you.
All right, and we get into the top 3, Sam.
All right, we're going to start repeating some names here. Yay. Top 3. Number 3, I have Tyrone Tracy. I feel like Tyron made such an impact, not only on the offense, but like you were saying, he's so optimistic. He made such an impression on this team, especially because we weren't even expecting to see someone like him this year. We put most of our eggs in Devin Singletary's basket. And Devin Singletary did. He did what he had to do in the beginning of this season. But as he slowly declined, Tyron Tracy said, hey, I can do this. And he stepped up and he did what he had to do. And you're 100% right about filling the shoes of Saquon Barkley is not an easy feat. And I'm so excited that he's just a rookie and we were able to see such good out of him this year that I'm happy to think that he's going to be someone that sticks with us, hopefully, for quite a bit of years because he's reliable. He's, like you said, low cost. And I love him. He seems great. He seems like a great person, too. So I have Tyron Tracy in my top 3.
Low cost, high reward. I love it.
Love it.
Excellent pick, Sam. Brian Burns got number 3 for me.
Nice.
Defensive player of the year for the Giants. I wanted to have him in this top 3. I think he was outstanding as a run defender as well, on top of rushing the passer. So I think his multi-dimensional skill set really was a factor on this team, especially with the absence of Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau. And when those two guys went down, there was still a leader in the locker room for younger guys like Elijah Chapman and Jordan Riley to look up to. And Brian Burns was that guy. The 8.5 sacks, maybe it wouldn't have been as many as he thought his first year. But again, numbers are numbers. At the end of the day, what do you put on tape? What do you put on film? Brian Burns put out a lot of good film this year. And I think Giants fans should be very happy about his acquisition. Number 2.
I have Micah McFadden. And I think that it's just over the course of this season, the more that we talked about him, the more he grew on me, and how much I appreciated him and how I pushed for him to be in our season's awards this year and be a most improved player, because on and off the field, Micah McFadden is I am arguing Micah McFadden is part of the glue that's attempting to keep this team a team. And, whether they throw him in front of the media to spew some good stuff about the front office and his coaches, he does it. He's got to step up. Dexter Lawrence goes down. He does it. I just there's something about Micah McFadden that he's grown on me over the course of this season, over the course of the last 2 to 3 years. So I said, you know what? Screw it. He's going to be my number 2.
Wow, that was definitely a bomb drop, but I don't disagree with it. I mean, I think there's a case for him to be up there. And just a fun fact so everybody knows, Sam does not follow Micah McFadden on Instagram.
I must change that immediately.
He only has 8 posts. He's like Daniel Jones, but
that's okay.
That is okay. Yeah, so good old number 41, Micah McFadden. Old school type of player with the physical mentality, I think. Yeah, I'll be honest, Sam, I'm a little surprised at number 2, but I don't dislike it at all.
I had to throw a little bit of the spice in there. You know me.
I think, too, it's what he does off the field that goes underlooked. And Bobby Okereke was missing for a few games this year. Who was the number 1 linebacker? Micah McFadden. So, yeah. Number 2, I have – right, yeah, we're up to me. I have Malik Neighbors at number 2. He is a rookie. Did I hold that against him from being number 1? No. I would have put him at number 1, but when Dexter Lawrence was off the field this year, the run defense was awful. So Malik Neighbors checks in for me at number 2. Records set this season, most receptions by a rookie in NFL history until that was broken by Brock Bowers just a couple hours later. Most receptions for a receiver in a single season in Giants history. We mentioned before, first guy to hit 1,000 yards since Odell. He had 7 touchdowns, 109 catches, over 1,200 yards. Consistency. He had 50 or more receiving yards in his last 10 games of the season. And despite his drought of not scoring a touchdown for about 2 months since the Browns game, he made up for it late in the season. He got some touchdowns late. He probably would have had more if the QB play was a little bit better. I'm really excited to see what he can do with a legit quarterback. Hopefully the Giants get that legit quarterback next season. Expect a bridge, hope for a franchise. That is what I plead to Giants fans. Malik Neighbors, in my opinion, is the most athletically gifted player on this team. But he checks in for me at number 2.
And there you go. He's my number 1. All for the same reasons. I mean, I think that this Giants team would have been significantly worse without Malik Neighbors on this team. And that's why he's my number 1. He was the most game-changing guy for our offense for the most part. Like we mentioned earlier, filtered through 4 quarterbacks in his first year in the league. No rookie wide receiver of his caliber should have to do that. They should have a consistent guy, and yet still with Drew Lock, with Tim Boyle, with Tommy DeVito, with Daniel Jones, he still reached that 1,000-yard mark. He still did what he had to do. Did he keep his mouth shut? No. He definitely made some waves, but I think that we kind of anticipate that from someone, an LSU guy, a starting wide receiver as a rookie, a top draft pick. It's kind of comes with it. And we're familiar with it, obviously, from Odell. But that guy did everything that he needed to do as a rookie wide receiver. So for me, he's my number 1. And I'm going to assume I know who your number 1 is.
Yeah.
Got to be the big guy.
The longest tenured Giant, the big fella, Sexy Dexy.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm speechless because his presence is so important on the defensive side. And the run defense fell apart when he was off the field this year. It allowed teams to run up and down the field on us. That exposed the lack thereof pass defense that we had. That's why Jerome Henderson, unfortunately, is out of a job. So, yeah, I wish Dexter Lawrence the best of luck in the offseason. I hope he gets healthy, and I hope he's back next year as a captain again. And I hope he breaks his career high in sacks. By the way, Dexter Lawrence hit a career high in sacks despite only playing in few games. Trying to remember how many games he played, and I think it was 12. So, yep, 9 sacks in 12 games for 340-pound defensive lineman. He is the closest thing to Aaron Donald currently in the NFL, in my opinion.
Looking back on it, I definitely should have swapped Micah and Dexter in my list and put Dexter at number 2 and Micah at number 4. But I will still stand by it.
However, Sam, I think what I took from your list is that I probably should have put Drew Phillips on mine instead of Azeez Ojulari. I think that was a little bias there for me, putting Azeez on the list.
You got to throw some bias in there sometimes.
Yeah, but Azeez.
I know you love Azeez.
I love him. I'm going to miss him when he's gone. But yeah, I thought these were 2 great lists. Comment here from Uno. Mariota, bridge for Dart.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce that name. Uno
Secura.
Don't know what that means, but what do you think of that, Sam?
I'm not a fan of Mariota. Not as a starting quarterback. Okay. I think Mariota does really well as a backup quarterback. We saw him filtering his way through the NFC East, that's for sure. Eagles and Commanders now. I see the vision. However, if there's anyone that we're bridging for next year, it's not Jackson Dart. Not in my opinion. So, but I see your vision. It's there.
Well, I think too, Dart could be a 2nd-round pick for us this year potentially, and then have him sit behind Mariota.
Oh, shoot. Jackson Dart's he's declared for this year.
He is coming out, but at this point, it's tough to tell at this time who's coming out, who's staying. We all thought Quinn Ewers was staying because he got offered $8 million from NIL, and then he declares for the draft.
Shocked to see that. All this talk about the portal, all this talk about going to a different team, and then he was like, actually, I'm going to go play in the NFL, which he's not a first round talent. So I don't know. Interesting.
Carson Beck to Miami.
Good. Stay down there.
With his girlfriend. Who plays women's basketball. So good for him. Closest is Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter is very, very good. I think he's top 5, but I think the body of work that Dexter Lawrence has put, and I say this while ignoring your Phillies profile picture there. Look, we're biased. You're biased. I mean, look, everyone is a little biased in us. But I think the body of work Dexter Lawrence has put out, the all-pro recognitions that he's received, and 9 sacks for a 340-pound lineman in 12 games, and he's constantly getting pressures. Guys have to game plan around Dexter Lawrence every single time. But I do agree. I will say I think Jalen Carter is top 5 at his position at this time.
This is what I just laughed at.
What was that?
This is what I just laughed at.
Tanner McKee.
Tanner McKee for our number 3 pick.
We can't laugh at this too much because he just sliced us up in week 18. So.
Fair enough, but
the number 3 pick, the latter part of this statement, yeah. My name means eventually one must heal. Interesting.
Oh, love that.
Thank you for that, Uno. Appreciate you, buddy. All right, Sam. Finally, our off-season predictions. Any that stick out to mind? I mean, it could literally be anything. It could be, Tyrone Tracy stubs his toe in Miami at a boat party.
Because his toe gets stuck in a floaty in Cancun.
Yeah.
Is this predictions that we think will actually happen or things that we maybe
actually happen?
Well, okay. Well, first things first, I do think that even if we're drafting a quarterback in the draft, I do think that we do get some sort of free agent quarterback. And I would be shocked if it was Drew Lock, because I know Drew Lock is technically a free agent. I don't know why they would bring him back. And I don't know if maybe it's just a loyalty thing if they do, but there's so many better free agents than Drew Lock available to have as some sort of backup. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Tommy DeVito is also a free agent.
Exclusive rights. So basically, since he was an undrafted free agent, we just have to tender him and he's back, which Joe Shane said in his postseason presser that Tommy's the only quarterback we have on the roster. So that tells me they're going to bring DeVito back.
That makes sense. So even if we do end up with either Shedeur or Cam or whatever in the draft, I do think that there will be some sort of free agent quarterback on our roster that is a new face that's not Drew Lock. It's one of mine.
Who are you interested in for that role? Are there any guys that I know you're big on 2? One younger guy, one older guy, if I remember correctly.
Yes. So one younger guy who I think would make a lot of sense is Justin Fields. And Justin Fields and the reason why I say makes a lot of sense is because he's someone who is not the typical quarterback that we would reach for. And I think that obviously Joe Shane and Brian Dable have been here now for 3 years, have realized hopefully at this point what works and what doesn't. And I think that we're going to be going in a bit of a different direction this year, trying to figure out something that might actually work for this team. And I'd love a mobile quarterback. I'd argue that Daniel Jones was a semi-mobile quarterback for us.
Very mobile, yeah.
He would trip after 80 yards, but we loved him for it. But Justin Fields proved that he could still be a starter out in Pittsburgh. Obviously, Russ came in, took over the show, but I don't think Justin Fields is done or just a backup quarterback in any stretch of the imagination. The older guy is a bit out of reach, and I've been told is a bit expensive, and I don't even think that he will be available. But how fun would it be to have Kirk Cousins as a New York Giant? I think it would be a lot of fun. However, I do think that the Falcons are, if no one trades for Kirk Cousins, they're gonna bring him back. So, yeah, I think that one's a little bit more hopeful. Um, but I got really excited for like a hot second when they started Michael Penix. I was like, bring Kirk to New York. We'll take care of him. And I know that you like Kirk Cousins, Tom. I know you do.
I do, but I don't think he's what we need personally. Jackson Dart almost 500 yards rushing this season with Ole Miss. Totally. Um, for me, I think we're going to get a quarterback in free agency who will be the 2024 starter. Giants fans will argue until they're blue in the face as far as who it is. Look, I thought Daniel Jones was very mobile. But I mean, the issue with Daniel Jones was his injuries. He could never stay on the football field, and that made him a little less mobile towards the end. And it's unfortunate that it didn't work out. It's definitely unfortunate. Zach Wilson.
I just saw
Wow.
that. I pulled up a name of NFL free agents and I saw his right at the top, right under Sam Darnold, and I said, "That's a New York Giants move." Is that a move that I want? No. I don't think Sam Darnold or Zach Wilson should ever return to MetLife Stadium
Probably
for the
not. At
good
least
for
seeing
the good
ghosts.
of their lives.
Yeah.
I think they should stay far, far, far away. I honestly, if Sam Darnold had was part of any other team before the New York Jets, I'd probably be like, hell, let's try and get him. But I think I like Sam Darnold too much now at this point to ever let him try and come back to MetLife Stadium, and that goes for Zach Wilson as well.
So my prediction, I think the Giants will not draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders because neither will be available at number 3. I think the Titans are going to take Cam Ward, and I think Shedeur will be the number 2 pick. I don't necessarily think it'll be the Browns picking at number 2. It might be
Oh,
the Las Vegas Raiders trading up to make a move because I don't think Shedeur wants to be in Cleveland. And I think the Giants are going to get screwed. The Raiders would be more inclined to trade up from 4 spots than the Giants would be to move 1 spot, in my personal opinion, for Shedeur Sanders. And last year it came out that if Shedeur went to the draft, the Giants were interested, but at a round 2 to 3 grade on him. And I don't really think Shedeur is a first-round QB prospect. I think Cam Ward is the only one that's a first-round QB prospect. And I don't even think he's worth the number 1 overall pick, but he's going to. Why? Because he's a quarterback, and that's the most important position on the football team.
mm-hmm.
He's really the only one that I would be head over heels over in this draft. I wouldn't hate Jackson Dart. I think he's good. I think he's solid. I think he has a lot of potential. But all in all, I think the Giants will either draft best player available at number 3 or trade back. And I think, Sam, this franchise is going in a different direction. I think Mike Kafka is going to leave for another offensive coordinator job.
All right.
And I think Slayton and Aziz are going to be gone with new teams.
I think Darius for sure is going to be gone. And I don't mean that in any disrespect to him. I just think that his time here is done. Which is sad. We're like the veterans of this team are slowly the quote unquote veterans, you know. It's like we lost Shep last year and I thought he was gonna retire. Then he was
Yeah.
like, actually I'm gonna go play in Tampa. Bye. It's like, okay. And, you know, even Daniel Jones at this point, Saquon, like they're all gone. And, you know, and that's kind of where I got this idea that maybe it's time for this like brand new fresh start, that maybe we do need to go in a different direction than we've gone in the past, because obviously the past how many years, apart from that one playoff win for us, like nothing to show for it for the most part. So, but I definitely would agree with you that I know you like Aziz, but he's probably not going to stick around much longer either.
No. Yeah, I get so mad when I have to deal with the fact that Evan Neal and Josh Azudu will still be on this roster next season. But what could you do? You can't get everything you want. And whatever happens in the draft happens in the draft. I love Travis Hunter at number 3.
Love that. I would love that.
Because he is the best player available, and we need players. Sam, any final thoughts before we sign off for the season.
If Travis Hunter is there at number 3 and they don't take him, I might boycott because that's absurd. I think that Travis Hunter should be utilized on both sides of the ball in the NFL. I hate when they try and corner these guys, no pun intended, into doing more defensive stuff. But yeah, I mean, overall, low-key happy that the season's over because it's time to move on. It's time to see if we can turn some things around. I know last offseason we were kind of thinking the same, and we obviously are here towards the end to see what we're at now. But at this point, we just have to trust the universe because there's nothing that we can do to alter anybody's picks or anybody's thoughts or anybody's decisions. So at this point, Tom, it's in the hands of the universe, and excited to see what happens after draft time comes around.
And there goes the motorcycle.
Our last motorcycle of the year.
Time. Folks, don't worry. We won't be going anywhere. I'll still be doing pre-recorded YouTube videos. Sam will be helping out with the shorts as well as things happen. Any major news, free agency's coming up in 2 months. That should be fun. The draft in 3.5. So there's a lot to dissect and talk about. And Sam, I appreciate you and all of your hard work this season as well. It's been great as always. And I know we'll still be doing stuff behind the scenes, but these are always a lot of fun. And I think both of us deserve a pat on the back. This is a very difficult season to get through 18 weeks of constantly coming on here and doing this and talking about this team and trying to make light, trying to entertain the fan base and the audience. And it's not easy to do.
It's not.
Thank you, Uno. I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Very, very kind man. Folks, for the final time this season, on behalf of Sam Cardona Norberg, I'm Tom Scavetta. We wish you all a good night. We will see you on YouTube. And without further ado, for one last time, let's go Big Blue.